In today's video, we are going to talk about integers, specifically how to add and subtract them, and in a separate video, we'll go over how to multiply and divide them. And we're talking about integers involving signs, because when you throw in those negatives, that's when things get a bit more confusing. So what are integers? If you think of a number line, we start at 0. On this side, we go up. On this side, we go down. Each of these numbers that I'm writing are integers, and it goes on forever on either side. Okay, so these are our integers. We can have positive integers, we can have negative integers, we can have 0. So how do I start to add them? Well, the first thing I'm going to go over is if I've got questions like, so for example, the kinds of questions we're going to talk about together would be things like this, which you probably already know how to do. Something like that. We'll give you one more. So typically we're pretty good at answering questions that look like this and that look like that. It's these situations that I find kind of stump us a lot of the time. So how do we start to look at these questions? I once asked someone who is in the math education world, his name is John Mighton, how he teaches this, because I find that a lot of students struggle with it. And he said to think about it like money. And in particular, he said to think about it like having money versus going into debt. So when you're doing questions like this, I want you to think of it in terms of money. Okay, now what's the story that we're going to tell ourselves? Well, if something is a positive number, that means you woke up one morning and you had $6.
The plus 5 tells you that someone now comes and gives you $5.
All I want us to think about right now is at the end of each story or question, is this a good day, meaning we have money, or is it a bad day, meaning we're in debt? So again, we're basically going to say, is this a good day, so we have money, or is it a bad day and we're in debt? And if it's a good day at the end of the day, we're going to put a positive sign for our final answer. And if it's a bad day, we're going to put a negative sign in front of our final answer. Okay, so having money, positive, debt, negative. So over here, we talked about the story. I have $6. Someone gives me $5. This is now a good day. So I'm going to put a plus. This next one, I have $7 when I wake up. Someone says, hey, you owe me. So the owing is the negative. You owe me $3. Well, if I have $7, and for those of you who want me to write this out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say each of those sticks represents $1. I owe someone $3. I still have $4 left. So still a good day. Remember, by our definition, good just means I have money. Bad means I'm in debt and I don't have money. Over here, what does this mean when I start the day at a -3? Well, this means that I already start the day off in debt $3, but then someone comes along and says, hey, I'm giving you $7. Okay, so I'm in debt $3. Someone gives me $7. So I would give $3 of those dollars to pay off the debt, and I'd still have money left over. So still a good day. Okay, so I'm hoping you're understanding the good and bad day. We'll see what it looks like over here. So you wake up one morning, you are in debt $5. And then someone says, hey, you owe me another $2. So this is a bad day. And actually, you're even more in debt than you were before. My pen has stopped working. There we go. And if you feel comfortable with it, pause the video here and tell me whether this one's going to be a good day or a bad day. And then when you're ready, unpause it. Okay, so I wake up, I'm in debt $10. I already owe people $10. Someone gives me $4. That's great, but it's not enough, so I'm still in debt. So the first thing I want to say is a lot of students remember the mantra, a positive and a positive make a negative and a negative make a positive. That doesn't apply to adding and subtracting integers. That applies to multiplying and dividing them, and we'll see that in the next video. But when it comes to adding and subtracting, you can't say a negative and a negative give me a positive answer. That doesn't work with adding and subtracting. But thinking about it like money will always work for you. So now if we understand that story and we can think of it like money, now we can go and add in the number part of it. So I have $6, someone gives me $5, I add the 2, I have 11. Now obviously we don't always need to put this plus there, but I'm going to leave it there just for emphasis. Over here, let's think through it with common sense. I have $7, someone takes away 3, or I lose 3. That was this picture here. So I still have 4. Over here, I'm in debt $3, someone gives me 7. And like we talked about before, you can take 3 of those dollars from the 7, pay off your debt, and you're still left with 4. Over here, if I'm in debt by $5 and then someone says, hey, you still owe me 2 more, I'm actually adding my debt. So here's my rough work off to the side. I now have $7 worth of debt. So the 7 is here, but that negative sign is what tells us it's still debt. So again, you can't say a negative and a negative make a positive, because that only applies to multiplication and division. Again, if you're comfortable, pause it, say the story to yourself, and see if you can answer this question. Unpause it when you're done. So I have debt of $10 when I wake up. Someone gives me $4. I'm still in debt, but I can pay off some of that debt, so it's going to be -6. Some teachers teach it as, when you're doing the addition and subtraction, whatever sign the bigger number has is going to be the same as your final answer, and that does work too. I just like this because if you forget those little rules, if you think of it as money with this good day, bad day, debt kind of story, you will always get it right. And it works even if we have larger numbers. So let's try that with larger numbers. Let's see, I guess we're on F now. Why don't we try it with this? So once again, pause the video, try these on your own, and then come on back when you think you're ready, and we'll do them together. Okay, now that you've tried them yourselves, let's take a look at this F question. So I start the day, I'm in debt $10. And I realize I owe someone another $15. So now I am in debt, and I'm in even bigger debt than I was before. So for my rough work, I can add 10 and 15. And this is how much I now owe people in total. So it's a -25. Over here, I start in debt $63, or I owe someone $63. Someone gives me 10. So what do I do with that? I'm going to take my original $63 debt. I'm going to subtract off $10 from my debt. And so I still have this much of a debt left. So my answer is -53. Now, eventually, you're not going to have to say this whole story to yourself every time, and it's going to get a lot quicker. I just like this method because, again, if you're ever stuck, you can fall back on this and get the answer right every time. So this is, I think this is what I'll call part A, because I want to go into part B, because sometimes our questions aren't as straightforward as this. Sometimes we have a whole bunch of negative signs, and we're not always sure what to do with that. So I'm going to call part B dealing with our double signs. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by dealing with double signs, so you know the kind of questions I'm talking about here. So the kinds of questions, and actually, you know what, let me move this down. We'll just start a new page down here. So the kinds of questions I'm talking about would be questions like 2 plus bracket +3, or I'll give you, so let's call this A, or maybe 2 plus -3, or maybe you've seen questions like 2 subtract +3, finally maybe 2 minus a -3. And so again, there are a lot of different ways to talk about these questions and how to do them. Some teachers will say, and again, these are all good methods, I'm just giving you an alternative. So some teachers will say, actually some teachers like you to write it in this form, but here's how I like to do it. I like to come up with a rule where I can convert these questions, all of these questions, into a part A kind of question. In other words, I want to get rid of these, what I call double signs. And here's the rule. It's actually a multiplication and division rule, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But the rule for these double signs is if the signs are the same, your double sign collapses into a single, a single positive sign. Okay, so if my signs are both the same. They collapse into a single positive sign. So what do I mean by that? Both of these are plus, plus, and plus. So this collapses into a single positive, and I don't need this bracket anymore. So my next line now says 2 plus 3. Move these down. I need a bit more space. And so that I can do, and that would just become 5. Okay, so that's an example. But what if the rules, what if the signs are different? So if the signs are different, then you end up replacing that entire, what I call a bubble, with a single negative sign. Okay, so if the signs are different, you replace it with a single negative sign. So what do we mean by that? Here's another example. So over here, these two signs are different. One's a plus and one's a minus. So the whole bubble that I just circled in pink can be replaced by a negative. So again, I will write this as 2 minus 3. And now I'm back to a part A question above where I say I wake up with $2. Someone says, hey, you owe me $3. So you give them the $2 you already have and you still owe them $1. Okay, hopefully this is becoming a little bit clearer for you. Whoops, I want to move this down a little bit. So let's give this a shot yourself. So based on these rules, pause the video, see if you can figure out what this bubble collapses into, what kind of a single sign, and same thing for this. And then come on back when you're done to check your work. Whoops. Okay, so now that you're back, I'm hoping that what you have is, because these two signs are different, a minus and a plus, these combine into a single negative. So I keep the 2, I keep the 3, and I replace those double signs with a negative. That becomes just like our question up above, so it's a -1. Here, these two signs are both the same, negative and negative, so it gets replaced by a single positive. So 2 plus 3, and I get 5. So that's just how we're going to deal with those double negative signs every time we have them, double positive, negatives, or different. Let's give you a question that's a little bit harder. So let's give you a part E. And it's only going to be harder because it's got 3 integers instead of just 2. So take a minute, pause the video, and I want you to actually try to guess at what you're going to do next. With math, you don't ever want to sit there and kind of passively just listen and memorize. You want to say, based on what I already know, am I able to make a good guess for a harder question? So the more you're able to risk taking guesses, and it's okay if you're wrong, the braver you'll be with the harder questions. So pause it, come up with a guess. Totally fine if it's wrong. I just want you to guess it. Okay, when you come back, I'm hoping that you saw that there's this double sign thing here that we can go and use these rules for. And if not, again, that's okay. So then the question might be, what do I do with this? Well, let's leave what we don't know what to do with first. What we do know is that these are 2 different signs. This whole thing collapses into a negative. These are the same signs. This whole thing collapses into a positive. So now I can rewrite it. So I'm gonna copy out the -5. There's my -5. This subtract, I'm gonna bring that down here. The 3, I'm gonna bring it down here. So just to show you where all these numbers are coming from, this went down here, the negative is here, the 3 is here, and then the next thing I bring down is my plus, and then my 7. Now I can just move left to right. I can even add up my debt numbers. So think of it this way. Here I wake up in debt. Someone says, hey, you owe me $3 more. Well, now I have a larger debt of $8. So I can take those 2 first if I'd like, then apply the part A story of good day, bad day all over again, and you'd get a -1. Okay, so hopefully that has helped. And again, it's one thing to hear it and for it to make sense, but you really do need to try it on your own as well to make sure you're okay. So if you would like to try some practice questions, I'm going to write out some questions here and I'll have you pause it and I'll also give you the answers afterwards, just so you have a chance. And before I forget to remind you, it is so important to always check your answers whenever you're doing your math homework questions. And it's important to check it generally after each one because you want that immediate feedback. Okay, because if you make a mistake, You don't want to keep making that same mistake multiple times. If you do, you'll end up being an expert at that mistake, which is the opposite of what we want to do. And I'll try to make some study skills videos as well. Maybe I can talk about that more. Okay, so I've got 5 practice questions there for you. Try not to use a calculator for it. Pause it, do it on a scrap piece of paper, and you can come back and I will write out the answers for you, and then you can just compare yours. If any of them are wrong, pause to see why you think you got it wrong. It's really important that you understand where you might have gone wrong if you didn't get the right answer and what you could have done differently to get it right. All right, so pause it now if you haven't already. Okay, so now that you're back, let me give you the answers for these. Answer for 1 is 9, 2 is negative 11, 3 is negative 6, 4 is negative 18, and 5 is 19. So hopefully that makes sense. If you got any of them wrong and you couldn't figure out where you went wrong yourself, ask a friend, ask a parent, ask a teacher, and I hope this helped. Have a great day. Bye. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe.